One brotherhood, one ship. Stay bearded, stay feeling. One brotherhood, one ship. Stay bearded, stay feeling. It's BV. It's BV. BV. It's BV.
Yeah.
It's BV. It's BV.
BV.
It's BV.
BV.
It's BV.
It's BV and Jellified, Jimmy Beam and Bly, reaching highest where we reach, yo, as high as to the stars. Beats in the villain Jeep, vibrating other cars. Whose world is this? Yo, we say the world is ours. So we grow beards, no fear, photos so clear. Take another shot, so to speak, yeah, more beer. BV worldwide, put a fist to the sky. Cheers, cheers, New Year's, dope rhyme, good vibes. My crew speaks power, Chi-Town bleeds power. Knowledge, wisdom, and truth in the final hour. Respect, loyalty, family, charity speaks power. Bearded Village brotherhood speaks honor. Forwards and onwards, stay villain to the end. I will never shave again because my beard is not a trend. I represent excellence, leadership, and never follow. I'm a BBC member, yo, Lieutenant of Chicago.
One brotherhood, one ship. Stay bearded, stay feeling. One brotherhood, one ship. Stay bearded, stay feeling. It's BV. It's BV. BV. It's BV. It's BV. It's BV. It's BV. It's BV.
Hello and welcome. Happy Friday night, guys. I just want to keep jamming to that song all night long. Every time I hear that kick in, I just want to go. Hello, guys, and welcome to The Heart of a Villain, the podcast and live stream devoted to the bearded villains worldwide brotherhood and the lives they are changing all over the world. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate everybody here who's here on the live stream, and I also especially appreciate all of those of you who have been listening from the very beginning, since it was pretty ugly on this podcast. So, man, guys, we're on episode 31 now. We are on episode 31. It's really been going into high gear ever since we started these weekly podcasts. And it's just so much fun to do these live streams. So, guys, those of you who have taken some time out to be here on the YouTube channel on this Friday night, I greatly appreciate that. I'm really appreciative because, especially as the weather starts to get a little nicer here in the States anyway, I'm not sure how it is overseas, but as it gets a little bit nicer in this part of the world, it really means a lot because everybody wants to get out there in the nice weather. So the fact that people are here on a Friday night means a ton to me. So again, I'll say thank you to everybody. If you do like bearded men, bearded brothers, brotherhood, charity, or anything like that, or just bearded men trying to make a better place in the world, this is the place for you. So thanks again for being here. Guys, I'm going to read out, man. Again, this is episode 31. And with this episode, we're going to do a couple things here. We're going to introduce a brother to us here who's got a really cool idea to raise some money in this COVID-19 pandemic. He's doing something with some gaming idea that he has. He's probably not the first to do this. It's not a novel idea, but the fact that he's doing it and then the way that he's doing it is very cool. So we're going to hear from him in a little bit. And also, this is National Police Week, I know, at least here in the United States. And those of you who know me well know that that was my prior career for just over 20 years of my life before I retired and became a stay-at-home dad. So the whole prospect of everything that is National Police Week is near and dear to my heart. I was involved in it for several years, and it's just a very touching time. It's a very different time this year with National Police Week being what it is with the COVID-19 pandemic and everybody having to stay at home. But nonetheless, it's definitely a time of reflection. So I wanted to pay homage a little bit to my police roots. Again, this is BP from Bearded Villains of Indiana and the host of the Heart of a Villain podcast. Thanks again for being here. I want to recognize some people who have been here early. We've got a bunch of people from the UK chiming in. We got Hillbilly, we got Alexander. We got Irishman from next door here. How's he doing, buddy? Caveman from down south. We're going to hear from the Caveman, JJ, in just a little bit here as part of our police topics of the day. So that'll be really interesting to hear. Sharissa and Jay are in the house too. Appreciate you guys. Brent, Connor, all of you guys, I appreciate you guys taking some time out for this night. Taz is in the house too. Make sure I try not to miss anybody here. So again, guys, thanks so much for being here. Just so you guys are aware, I like to point out the obvious here. The Heart of a Villain is available to you guys 4 times a week now. Monday and Wednesday, you can catch the mid-morning super awesome live stream Facebook show. If you can't catch it live at 10 a.m. Central, and it's only 30 minutes long, you can catch it on a replay later on the day. And the fun part about that is it's just a time for motivation and just kicking the day off. I know a lot of people start their day a little earlier than that, but it's just a nice mid-morning way to do things. So Mondays and Wednesdays, 10 a.m. Central. And then we have on Tuesday nights, we have the IG Live for no good reason. And that's just a question answer, just kick it back, Instagram Live, where we just sit around and hash out things and talk about, the wares of the world. Except for politics. We don't get into that. I bring some people on and we just talk. So it's a lot of fun. And then we also have what we are doing right now, Friday Night Live, for the live stream of the podcast recording. And then the podcast is also sent over to Simplecast to be broadcast out. So anybody that wants to listen to it in the standard podcast platforms, that's where you can go. So we're 4 times a week, and I'm greatly appreciative of everybody that's here and listening and finds us on any one of those platforms. Just a quick reminder also, we've had people asking, the merchandise is still available on the podcast site, which is theheartofavillain.simplecast.com. Shirts, patches, pins, and things like that are available. So we get that stuff out of the way early so we don't have to mention it again, and I don't want to sound like I'm beating a dead horse per se, or I'm coming at you from all angles trying to advertise what you guys are already here to see or listen to in that regard. So I have, let me see if I forgot to load up any kind of fun music for this, because this is kind of a neat. Let's see. Do I have it? No, that's not what I want. Let's try and come back over here to music, and let's see. Do we have something fun? Well, that's not really what I was hoping for, but hey, we'll take it. We've got a really cool, really fun announcement. I think it's fun anyway. Okay, so over the course of this past week, actually it's been in the last 2 weeks, over the course of the last 2 weeks, we have hit a mark with the podcast. And although it sounds, if you put the projections into the whole nature of things, it may not sound too impressive, but for the little podcast that is, for what we are, for the Heart of a Villain, I think, and I'm taking personal pride in everything that this stands for, because it says that we're doing something here with this podcast, and you guys are following it and listening, and it makes a difference to people. But over the last 2 weeks, at some point, and I don't know the exact date, we reached 5,000 downloads of the podcast among all different podcast platform availabilities, and that's just on the audio form. So we reached 5,000 total downloads of this podcast, and whereas that might be something that's a daily event for a Joe Rogan out there, for us, it's a pretty cool thing. So I'm really, really excited about that. I'm really proud of it, and I'm excited for the future, because we've got so many more stories to talk about, so many more brothers to talk to, so many more people to help. And that's what this podcast is about. So those of you who have been here from the beginning, again, thank you. If you've just found us, remember that you can go over to the YouTube channel, which is listed under the Heart of a Villain if you're not here right now. So again, guys, thanks so much. 5,000, well, we're over 5,000. I think we're somewhere near 5,500 now at this point. So it's such a cool thing. Maybe 5,200, I'm not sure. So, but such a cool thing. So again, thank you so much for everybody. Okay, so we are going to kick it in. Now, what I mentioned first off was that we have a brother, and this is a really, really cool thing. And I'm going to try and bring this up on the screen if I can, so you guys can see. Now, if you've been on Instagram, looking on Instagram for anything related to other chapters out there, you'll notice that the Bearded Villains of Minnesota, and then also this fine gentleman here, Wandering Viking, put out this post, and a few other people have been sharing it as well. They put out this post that he is going to be doing. He came up with a way that he wanted to raise money for COVID-19 pandemic and raise some money for Feeding America. So what he's decided to do is go 19 hours for COVID-19 stream. He's going to do a live stream game for 19 solid hours, starting tomorrow on Saturday, the 16th at 9 a.m. Central Time. So at 9 a.m. Central Time, do the math and figure out what that is you want. If you go to twitch.tv/Wandering Viking, you can go over there and help him out and help little donations there. That he's going to be taking some donations, and however they do that, those of you that are gamers know how to do that. But if you go over there to twitch.tv/Wandering Viking, you can go out there and help him raise some money. So such a cool idea. He's going to be on here in just a minute with our interview guest, but talking about that, he's got a cool backstory too. This guy he's our brother from Minnesota, and he's going to tell you a little bit about being a stand-up comedian at some point, and just a fun dude. So it's kind of a get to know him, but also just to get a little bit of. We're trying to, to pop him up a little bit and get a little word out on what he's trying to do to raise some money. So anytime our brothers are doing something unique like that, we really like to see if we know about it, we like to advertise that for that. So again, that is tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central. And we're just going to go ahead and go right into it, guys. This is pay attention because this is a really cool interview. And when we come back from this interview, we're going to go right into a really interesting series of topics regarding National Police Week. And I'm going to give a couple personal stories about my past. But right now, we're going to go into my interview that I had with the Wandering Viking. I'm speaking with a villain from the Bearded Villains of Minnesota who is doing something really cool this upcoming weekend. And I just had to get him on when I heard about this thing. So I am now talking with Wandering Viking, or Scrappy, from the Bearded Villains of Minnesota. Buddy, how are you doing today?
Just surviving, quarantine lockdown.
Man, that's true. That's true. And we're always looking for new things to do. And you have come up with something I think is really cool. And I'm sure you're not the first person to ever think of something like this, but it's a really cool idea, and symbolic and all sorts of craziness. But I don't even want to spoil it. So people, I'm sure, by the time this podcast is out, they will have probably seen the post that you and the Bearded Villains of Minnesota have put on. But man, go ahead and just tell us what you're doing this weekend.
Well, it came to me that with this quarantine, being bearded villains, we like to do the charity work. You can't get out there when the states are locked down and everything. So I still wanted to incorporate with my chapter to do a charity event. And I was seeing this thing going around of 19 hours for COVID-19. And I'm going to stream live on Twitch for 19 hours straight on Saturday. And all the proceeds will be going to charity Feeding America, which are going to help families during this time that can't afford to get their food. Because, loss of jobs and all things like that. So It's going to be a rough go.
19 hours, man. So yeah. For those of us who have never tried anything close to that, you're doing this at home, but that doesn't mean that it's any less difficult, because 19 hours doing anything, I don't care if you're just sitting watching a marathon of movies, is not easy to do. What do you do if you're straight? What's the longest you've ever done any streaming before?
I probably only done 6 hours straight. So this is definitely going to be a challenge, really.
Yeah, no doubt.
I got some plans, but it's going to be a rough go for sure.
Okay,
endurance.
So I know you've been I assume you're a hardcore gamer for the most part, then, if that's something that you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of gaming.
Okay, if you're a big gamer, then tell me, because I am, and I've told this to people and they laugh every time I say it. My gaming experience ended well before anything that's out right now. I am a child of the 80s and the Atari 2600, and those days, and some of the gamers today just still don't even know what that is. But in college, the most recent thing I think I did was playing Tecmo Bowl in the fraternity house. So for those of us that are unfamiliar, I've tried to play some of these new games today, Battlefront or something like that, and I'm just lost. I can't make my fingers hit all the buttons the right way, and I end up dying very quickly. I'm looking around the corner. What just happened? You died, Dad. Oh, okay. Well, have fun with this game. So,
Right.
so for those of us who aren't familiar, when you're doing this live stream thing with gaming, now
Yeah.
I've seen some live streams of gaming. I can't sit there and watch it for very long just because I sit there and I'm like, okay, well, then I start second guessing myself. Why am I watching this?
Right.
Other people that are really into it love it, and they get tips and tricks, and I can see all that stuff. But while you're doing this gaming thing, what happens when you gotta go pee?
Oh man, I got different screens I'll put up. So like even say, be right back. I'm probably eating. I think that's what my be right back screen says right now. But yeah, I was debating on bringing like a 2-liter and just having it underneath my desk. But
That's not what you want to do.
no, the mic's really sensitive.
Yeah,
we
it
don't need
The last thing you want is to have something spray up on the camera or something like that.
Right.
When everybody knows what you're doing, that'd be mess.
Oh, it'd be horrible.
Then you'd really need a be right back screen as you changed your clothes and everything else. So that's not something you need to do. So okay, so it's considered normal etiquette then when you're doing a live stream for gaming that you just hit the pause button or whatever it is between lives or something like that, and you just take a break for a second, run to the kitchen or to the bathroom. That's fine.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll see it, especially with the bigger names. Like this will be my first time actually having to use it. Like I'll use it every now and then, for fun to do the be right back. But like this time I'm legitimately going to be like, okay, I have to cook lunch. So, but
Okay.
I was also debating on cause I could stream on my phone. So I thought about connecting the gimbal and just bringing it with me when I'm cooking lunch. I'd be like, I'm committed, man.
Okay, I could see being committed for that, but just don't take it to the bathroom with you. No one wants that.
Yeah.
I don't care how hardcore you are. No one wants that.
That's a premium service.
There you go. You just found another means of getting some money for charity.
I'm going to start an OnlyFans.
Yeah, get your OnlyFans going. Get that up and running real quick. So, all right. So you just kind of explain how this works. I have a few other brothers here in Indiana that are big streamers for gaming, and they're always saying, "Hey, come on this thing," and you can. I know that you can donate. People can, give them tips or whatever it is. How does that all work? Is it different on different services?
It's kind of different for each streamer. Like, I'm not good at any game in particular. So like I get on, I used to do stand up before I had my child. Okay. And when I had him, it's harder to get to comedy clubs and do stand up. So I kind of used streaming and podcasting as like my outlet. So instead of being like, here's how you get the greatest skin in Fortnite, I'm more of like, watch how horrible I am and how hilarious I'm going to try to be about this. And like, I want to do a more entertainment value than a educational tool, because I could teach you how to paint miniatures and I'll do that on stream sometime. But when it comes to gaming, I'm pretty chill about it. So,
okay, so that's a different take, because the ones that I've seen, they take it a lot more serious, and so it's fun. I mean, you sit there and click on it, and all you do is I see it. It's usually a side profile of somebody, and then and then a few seconds later they'll be like, and you can hear them clicking the remote, right? Click, 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 click.
Oh yeah.
And then they're like, oh, come on, get out there. Oh, come on. And then it's like, all right. And then they come over, turn to the screen for a second and look at this comments. Looks like, yeah, whatever you say, man. I don't care. I'm playing my game, man. And then turn back away. And it's not just one person I've seen do it this way. It's many. So, but then I've seen that there's the capability where you can share the screen so everybody sees what you're doing. And then you can actually talk into a camera that's nearby, rather than like in between lives where you turn back and you go, oh, shut up, I'm killing my...
Right.
So that's not what you're planning on doing. You're planning on giving us the full experience, but in a comical way.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's more of, I'm shooting for kind of like if you were to go to your friend's house in the old days and sit on the couch and play games with each other, I'm kind of shooting for that. Well, granted, there might be some games that I could get some other people involved in. We might do that, like a Jack Party or Jackbox games where, people could join in on their cell phones. But yeah, otherwise I'm going for more of like a 19 hours of hang out with the Wandering Viking, and hopefully somebody delivers me food and beer and it makes it a good old time.
There you go. That sounds fun. So, okay. So explain then how does it work? You're going to be going on Twitch, right?
Yep, I'll be on my Twitch.
Okay, so you'll be on Twitch, and people on we're going to go over that in just a second. Where, I'll put up your graphic during the podcast so people can see the graphic and see exactly what it is that they need to go, and we'll have you read that out in just a second. But if somebody wants to donate, how do they go about donating to your live stream so that they can help donate to your cause?
While I'm streaming, I haven't figured out if it's going to be a widget on the stream video itself or if it'll be in the comments, but there'll be an actual link that'll bring you to my charity's campaign.
Okay.
So that way you don't even have to worry about me pocketing the money. It'll go straight to Feeding America. And it sounds like there'll actually be like an interactive widget overlay. So you just kind of go over my stream with your cursor, or if you're on your phone, touch screens, and you can donate from there. They take PayPal and credit cards and things like that. So
okay, cool, very cool. And so because I've noticed before that it seems like when people donate to these things, any dollar amount really counts. So $15 is fine, but they'll even do $1.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the things I was really targeting because I looked for what charities are doing like a COVID response. Mm-hmm. And Feeding America, I like the whole premise of it because I've for my full-time job, we'll donate to like the food banks and all that. And I found out they hate food donations because you could bring in a case of soup and that's exactly what they're going to get out of it. But if you give them $5, they have better connections with, grocery stores or other food suppliers, so they get more out of the money than they would the food.
Yeah.
So it's like, there we go. That's what I'm going to shoot for. You can't send me perishable goods in the mail. So that's a really cool idea. And it makes a lot of sense that they can then take that money and be able to use it how they need to and use some of their connections, like you say, and get more out of it. Yeah, exactly.
So very cool, man. So tell us, have you decided what games you're going to be playing specifically?
Whew. I've gotten roped into playing the Call of Duty Warzone, which I've only played once and it went horribly. So that should be great.
Yeah.
There's a few chapter brothers that want in on that.
Hence they want to destroy you. That's right.
Oh yeah.
Hence the comic nature of things for this live stream. Okay. That's a great idea. So.
And one of the Swedish brothers, he wants to do Warzone too, but him and I were actually talking about doing a game called Sea of Thieves, which is like you're pirates and you do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, I think my son has that.
With that. So yeah, it's a good time. I'll fake a Scottish accent and just mess with people, and that's where TV gold right there.
Well, don't fake the Scottish accent while playing with somebody that has a Scottish accent because they'll nail you for it.
Oh yeah. No, I've been busted a time or two. So.
Yeah. What part of Scotland are you from? America? Yeah. Yeah. I get you. All right, man. That's so cool. All right. So are you going to do you just, as you play, do you just like go, okay, time for this game, guys, or time for this game, and then new skins will pop up for different games? Is that how that works?
Yeah, kind of. I kind of got a generic like bar on top of my layout. Otherwise, I'll cut to like my background image when it's just me and I'm switching in between games because I'm going to get bored of playing Call of Duty all damn day. Yeah. Like I can't do that. So we'll be switching it up every now and then. And like I said, I might do some, I don't know what they call it, IRL or in real life streams. So maybe cooking or, playing with the dogs for a little bit or something. I'm not sure. Got to break it up a little bit.
Very cool. All right. So tell everybody now how you can get get connected to the live stream where you're going to be at.
I go to twitch.tv/Wandering Viking. No special spelling or anything. Otherwise, you can also just go to Twitch and search Wandering Viking, and I should be hopefully the only one that pops up. I don't think anybody else would.
All right. So twitch.tv, is it?
Yeah.
Twitch.tv, then Wandering Viking.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. Such a cool thing. It's a great idea. I wish you nothing but the best. Good luck. I might just, is there a way that is it going to be like streamed, like just the video portion in any other platform? Can you stream that like on Facebook or something else so that people can just watch it?
I'm hoping to.
Okay.
What I can do Twitch and Facebook at the same time, but last time I tried it, it went all haywire. But I am trying to figure a way to live broadcast.
Okay.
But after it's live, it will be on YouTube.
Okay.
For your rewatching. But
All right. Very cool to see. I hope you get a lot of money, man. That's such a cool thing. And like I told you off air, you're inspiring other people because I know that there's others right now that are out there trying to come up with a plan of action to try and do the same thing that you're doing. So
right.
It's a very cool thing. Now, you did say something that sparked my interest, just out of curiosity, not game related or not your charity drive related, but you said something about you were a stand-up for a bit, huh?
Yeah.
You still do
if I
some
can
stand-up?
find stage time, I'll get on stage and
Now, how did that come about?
Oh my God. So way back when I was in a motorcycle club and I was living with the president at the time, but he's trying to hook me up with one of his friends and we went to the open mic night and she was all into this. She goes to the open mics all the time and I'm watching these guys and they got 5 minutes and I'm like, I can make people laugh 90% better without any material than half of these guys. I felt a little bad, but and so the next week that it came up, I got up, felt like I did pretty well. And after that, it was like an addiction, and I'm not great in group situations, but for whatever reason, being out, it's a persona that I'm pushing out. So it was easier to just,
Yeah.
rock with it. Yeah.
How cool is that? Yeah. There's nothing better than, I could never do stand up, but I've been a singer my whole life. And so, but
nice.
I know what it's like to be up on that stage and how, that feeling of having everybody out there at the palm of your hand. And it's an addicting feeling. There's nothing like it. Absolutely nothing like it. And there's that nervous energy, that kind of what if. And for you, if you're doing it like you're talking about, it's all mostly improv anyway. If you're not actually preparing any material, but the closest thing I've come to that is when I've been singing something and completely mess up the words mid-line, and as you're singing the wrong words, knowing you're singing the wrong words, thinking in your mind how I'm going to get out of this, and nobody catch it unless they know this song. That's fun. Oh. For some reason I excel at that. I've done it like 3 or 4 times, not because I tried, but 3 or 4 times I've done that where I'm in the middle of singing the wrong verse or the wrong thing. And I end up singing something to get me out of it, making up some words as I go along. But yeah,
that's awesome.
But so yeah, I know a little bit about the improv part of it, but I could not do what you do. I'm not that funny. So funny looking. Yeah, I could stand up there and just let people laugh at me and look at me. But other than that, no. So congratulations, that's a talent, man. That's a great talent.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's like you were saying about the singing. I don't know if you know the band Trampled by Turtles. But I got to talk to the lead singer, and we got talking, and we talked about the stand-up comedy. He goes, "How the hell do you get on stage and do that?" I was like, "You are selling out arenas, you fool!" Like he goes, "Yeah, but I got my friends." I'm like,
it's funny. Probably
so do I.
Probably, yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, I got all those personalities in my head. Yeah. It's funny because if you're prepared for it, you know that nervous energy is going to be there. And there's a comfort in knowing, okay, I'm going to come up here and do my thing. But so I don't necessarily need other people behind you, but you just know I'm going to come up here and do this. But for when you're talking stand up, man, that's just like, you're singing your song and a lot of times you're not going to get that audience reaction till the very end. And even if it's if it's not a great song, they're still going to give you the old golf clap and it's like, great job. Okay. That's nice. But you get instant reaction when you're doing stand-up, and if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time or it's just not taken that way, it's just dead. And you hear imaginary crickets, and I don't have a cricket sound effect going right now. I'd play one otherwise. No, terrible timing. I didn't know we were going to be talking about stand-up, but I don't think I even have anything close to that right now. No, I don't. I deleted the old generic one that's on there. So
nice.
I just have the fun stuff that I've created. So, but man, that's awesome. So, well, I can't wait to, keep it up. And I'm looking forward to being able to see you in stand up one day. That'd be awesome.
Oh yeah. Hopefully. I mean, I was hoping for the World Meet to do some stages in Chicago, but hopefully when that gets back up and going, I'll
That'd be awesome. That'd be
Get
awesome.
something set up then.
Well, buddy, I'm gonna definitely find a way to at least get out there and see you for a little bit on this 19 hours.
Oh, I appreciate it.
I might wait till 3 a.m. or whenever it is that you're at your lowest point.
Thanks.
I'm gonna catch him drooling on the couch sideways while he's trying to play with his remote, and and he's giving a narrative. 3 hours to go, guys. 3 hours to go. So
one infinity later.
all right, but we'll take care, man. I appreciate it, and man, go kill it and make some money, man.
Oh, I hope so.
All right. Have a great day, buddy. Oh man, how cool is that? Such a neat thing. Really fun guy to talk to. Man, Viking. He goes by a few different names. Scrappy, Garrett. You name it. He goes by a few. So if you're up in Minnesota, hit him up and those guys up in Minnesota and stop by, say hi. Hopefully he'll keep us posted when he starts doing some of that stand-up stuff, because that's very cool. I'm sure we have some other brothers out here in the Bearded Villain community who are amateur or maybe even a few professional stand-up comedians we'd love to hear about. So if you've got that talent or you know somebody does, give me a shout, because that's a very cool, difficult thing to do. So anyway, if you are available tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. on his Twitch, and you can hit him up for further details on that. Well, guys, it is National Police Week, and those of you, I'm gonna play some. Let's play some nice music here. So, those of you, this is a instrumental version of the song I wrote. But those of you who knew me knew that I was a law enforcement officer for 20 years. And from the time I started in my law enforcement career, I wasn't even out of the academy before I was attending my first law enforcement funeral for a fallen officer. I had the very rare and sad occurrence that a guy that roomed next door to me at the law enforcement academy here in Indiana passed away at the academy. And we were in the middle of training, and we just come in from a run out on the obstacle course / track, and we were getting ready to do push-ups. And about 10 feet from me, he had just had a massive heart attack. And we had 3 or 4 people. I was trained as an EMT at the time. We had 3 or 4 of us there that were either trained as EMTs and or paramedics, actually, plus all of the staff. And there was nothing that we could do to save him. So Jimmy passed away that day at the academy back in 1997, and it was just a really, really sad and very, very, very just a very tough reminder of what life can be and how quickly it goes. And this is a guy who wanted to be a law enforcement officer for just decades, and he was too old to be a law enforcement officer under normal circumstances. So he was able to find a way to be a marshal, I believe it was, at his local agency, where the age was not a requirement. They did not have a specific age limit. So he was in perfect health otherwise, and just bad situation. So ever since then, and I attended two more officer funerals in that first year that I was in uniform, and many others after the fact. And so if you know me, you know not only did I have the music background that I like to sing, but then the law enforcement connection. So one of the things that I was very adamant to try was to try and write a song to honor our fallen officers, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But for those of you who are here on the live stream now, I'm going to bring up a couple of somewhat funny / embarrassing photos for some of you to see. Some people who have been following me on the podcast and the live streams for a while may have seen some of these before. This picture here was me on my graduation day as I was getting ready to go in for graduation ceremonies. The bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 23-year-old with the crew cut had no idea what to expect of the world in law enforcement at the time, and you can just see the age or lack of age on that face. So that was me day one at before I went for graduation. Here's a photo of me several years later after I was been an officer for some time and was on the SWAT team doing a demonstration for a community organization where they came in and they wanted to learn about the SWAT team. So I was our senior firearms instructor. So myself and a few other instructors were giving them a community policing class about the SWAT team. This is the album cover of the album that I created to raise money for fallen officers. And the song that you're hearing now is the instrumental version of the song that I wrote for that album called Why Do Heroes Have to Die? Incidentally, it took me like 4 years to come up with this song. Since I don't play any music, I don't play any instruments very well at all, I just know how to sing. So I had to enlist the efforts of a friend of mine that I found locally who plays piano just beautifully. He's an incredible musician. And he, along with 4 other people, decided to help me out and volunteer in creating this album. And so here's a couple of photos you'll see here of me in the recording studio at the time. Just a few photos of the recording process back in the day. Look how young I am. That's crazy to see. But such an amazing experience. And back when I had a full head of hair and it was all pulled back and spiky. Crazy, crazy stuff, guys. But it was the most amazing experience musically that I've had and led me to doing some other very cool adventures that I went out on. This here, since we're on National Police Week, I wanted to include a few photos. I believe this is the first year that I went to National Police Week. And if you've never been to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., I can tell you that it is truly, especially during National Police Week, it is truly a life-changing experience. And it's just unlike anything else. The memorial itself is tucked in between several other buildings in the downtown Washington, D.C. area, and there's trees lining around it and everything else. They've got granite carvings and some, I don't even believe there's marble there, but they've got a reflecting pool here, as you can see. Some other inscriptions on different parts of it. It's very sad to see and very humbling to see the honors that family members come and leave during this week for their fallen officers, men, women, for their children who have fallen in the line of duty. And it's just an extremely humbling time. Families come and bring pictures, put pictures on the walls, as you can see here. And at the time when I first went to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, the very first year I went, they were saying that sadly they were coming up on 19,000 officers' names that were on this wall. And in the time since, at the time I retired, now they're well over 22,000. There's an average of 150 officers that are killed in line of duty each year in various forms. And it's just extremely humbling to see the sacrifices these people have left behind. Just a few more pictures here, and I'll get through to the rest of it. One of the neat things that's cool to see sometimes with the representation of different departments, as you can see here, is that some departments actually bring full-on uniforms framed and or parts of the officer's car. In this case, there's one from Terre Haute, Indiana. Terre Haute Police Department brought a car door that had the badge numbers and names of all the different fallen officers over the years from there as kind of a tribute to their officers. And they let you bring that stuff there and set it out during the week as a tribute. And it's incredibly moving to see. A photo of me, one of my acting heroes per se, during the time that I was at National Police Week, a great supporter, and everybody knows him. I won't even say his name, but everybody knows him from his Law and Order days and his Full Metal Jacket days, but such a great guy there. And again, this song and the album that I did gave me the ability to go out there and sing for the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial, the Peace Officers Memorial Service, and the Candlelight Vigil a few different years. And so it enabled me to sing for the families and co-workers of fallen officers a few times, and it's been the most rewarding and moving experience of my life from a singing perspective. And then here it is, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed at the end of my career. This was a couple of months before I finally retired after just over 20 years. A lot more pounds on and a lot less hair. So that wraps up kind of my story in the law enforcement circle of things. And 20 years in, guys, and it was an amazing, amazing time. It gave me the ability to witness some incredible acts of bravery, not just by officers, but by citizens. And it gave me strength in seeing the spirit of people. And it showed me weakness both in myself and in others. It proved that there is a power in people beyond words, and gives you hope that not all people are bad. And we'll get into that in just a minute with some of the interviews I have coming up. But wearing my LPPD hat tonight here, you see, that I had at the time I retired, that we were wearing. We'd gone from Class A uniforms to allowing Class B uniforms with baseball caps by the time I retired, so that was kind of nice. So, again, one of the things that I wanted to point out here is that a couple days ago, I came up with the idea of, it was just kind of last minute. I wanted to go ahead and honor the fact that it was National Police Week and the fallen officers and the sacrifices that they've made. And so I reached out on Instagram asking for any asking for any retired or active police officers to hit me up. And I did get some responses from some people, and I wanted to make sure I took a second to address this. I had some people reach out to me and ask if corrections counts. And by God, yes, corrections officers do count. You are sworn members, although in many cases the arrest powers are different. You are honored in the same way. And there are corrections officers out there that are honored every year for losing their lives in the line of duty. So it's important that I acknowledge that. But the reason that I was not specifically including corrections officers in the upcoming interviews is because I wanted to take it from a perspective that I was familiar with. And from a perspective of a line officer, an officer that has worked the street and interacted with people there. And it's a completely different circumstance than the people that are working in our prisons and jails in the correctional field. I would not want to do that job. You could not pay me enough. I would not want to be locked in with all those guys. So I have nothing but respect for those of you who are in the corrections or have been in corrections. It's not something that I would want to do. So, but I wanted to reach out to those that had similar experiences, because I cannot speak to the experiences of a corrections officer. Just like somebody who's been in corrections their entire career can't necessarily speak to what a road officer comes across. So I wanted to make sure that I acknowledged that and said that, you do count if you're a corrections officer. Absolutely. You are a sworn officer, and your sacrifices are acknowledged in the same way. But for the purposes of this interview, I wanted to speak specifically to the line officers working the street. So I reached out, and I had a few guys hit me back up, and I was able to get a couple of interviews in together. So unfortunately, because of the late nature at which time I decided that I wanted to do this was kind of a last-minute idea. I was thinking about National Police Week, but then it just clicked on me sometime about a day and a half, 2 days ago. Hey, we've probably got a bunch of other BV officers out there that are BV members that are former officers. And of course we do. We have many that are actually working still in some capacity. I wish that I could be a bearded officer. So we were not allowed to wear beards. That would have been really cool to have a beard other than in November. But that would have been really cool to be able to have a beard and still work as a police officer. We could do a goatee, but only if we were in plain clothes. So I found a couple of our officers, one from Southern Indiana and one from up in West. He's with the West Washington chapter, but he worked in a different part of the country at the time. So I put together a series of question and answer type of things, and just to kind of get to know. And what I want to come out of this is I did not want to ask these guys about, fallen officers specifically. I did not want to talk about any kind of loss, if they experienced loss while they were working. I think that's an extremely personal topic, and it's an extremely personal experience for anybody that has been through that. So I would never want to kind of publicize what that's like. But taking the opportunity to go ahead and mention National Police Week, as I already have, I thought this was a great opportunity to talk about some of our brothers that have been law enforcement officers in the past, and just some of their experiences dealing with people, some of the misconceptions that people may have about law enforcement officers, and some of the things that surprised them once they got into that career. So I want to go ahead and bring in Mongo and Caveman from Southern Indiana, Mongo from up in the northwest part of the country. And I'm going to bring them in for this interview here. And I hope you guys stay around and enjoy this, because this is really cool. There's some really neat information in here. And by the way, Caveman here in this interview has a really funny story. I had to make sure that I included in this. So he's got a kind of a once in a lifetime kind of story. It's very cool. This is National Police Week, and I'm sure you're familiar with the event itself that is National Police Week. I think everybody that's a law enforcement officer, or prior law enforcement officer, does know about it. And whether or not you've been out to National Police Week, to the different ceremonies, or you've gone to any local ones, it's something that's near and dear to everybody's heart that's been in law enforcement. Obviously honoring the fallen officers. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to speak to some of the different things and different experiences that we as law enforcement officers come across, or might some myths and different things that we might be able to dispel, or just kind of from our unique side of life, from living that life for some period of time. Where did you work, and how long were you there?
I was actually a deputy sheriff in Marion County, Mississippi. We were stationed in a little town called Columbia, Mississippi, and I was one of 15 officers that patrolled 520 square miles. Okay.
Now, for people that can't produce that in their heads, what's 520 square miles kind of like? How long to cover your area? How long? What kind of a distance are you? I mean, time wise, to get from one side to the other, if you weren't running like lights and siren.
If I wasn't running lights and siren, about 45 minutes.
Okay, so that's a pretty big area.
Oh yeah.
and you're talking, and it's rural, I'm sure, down in that part of the world. So you're talking 45 minutes, and that's not running lights and siren. And you said there were how many of you there out of that post?
On average, there's 15 officers, well, 15 total members, from the sheriff down to the chief deputy, lieutenants, which were our investigators. Our lieutenants and captains were investigators. We had 3 field sergeants, and then I can't remember how many actual just deputies, including myself. So,
and you were there for how long?
I was there for 2 years. I served 2 years, and I loved every minute of it. It was just a learning experience for me, and I think I'm a little better for having done that.
Good.
Well, I started out with the Sturgis Police Department down in Western Kentucky. I was there about a year, and I went over to the Webster County Sheriff's Department. And I was there for several years until I think 2005, and left there and went into coal mining, as you know.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's such a unique career field, and one of the funny things, and it's always interesting to talk to somebody that works. I worked for a municipality, but it's always interesting to talk to people that work for either a state police or a sheriff's department when you talk about experiences and durations and time as far as that it takes you to get to and from a call. Because when you say you had that many people working there, that includes your administrative people. That includes the people that basically are the office holders, the ones that are the sheriff. So you're only talking on a given shift. Now, were you 8 hour, 12 hour? What was your shift?
We worked 12s, and I worked primarily. I worked day shift with one other officer covering the county.
Okay, so that's something to take into perspective. 2 officers covering an area that takes you 45 minutes to get across. Now,
Yes.
granted, there's probably a few other jurisdictions within that area.
Yes.
However, it still takes you that amount of time. So when people are always wondering, and this is going to be kind of a this is going to be a topic that's going to follow throughout this whole set of interviews when I'm talking to other officers as well. Here, where I'm from, here in the northern Indiana area where I was working, it may take me only on a decent day 5 minutes to get, maybe 10 with bad traffic lights to get through my entire town where I was working. We had about 21,000 people that are in this area here where I'm from, but we may have 5 or 6 guys working the street at a time. So our backup's pretty close. That's not something you experience unless you're getting backed up by another agency usually.
Yeah. So usually during the daytime there, like I said, there was 2 deputies that patrolled Marion County. We also had the Pearl River Basin Narcotics Task Force guys that if we needed, we could call them in. We would have our investigators that were at the office. So, I mean, we had guys that were there if needed, if the need arise. But, I mean, you're still, they're situated in Columbia, Mississippi is where the office was at. So if I'm out at the north end of the county, I mean, they're still, even if they're running code, they're still a good 20 minutes. My backup would be a good 20 minutes away.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that truly can be kind of a frightful thing. I mean, you never admit to it on the street, but at the fact, to other officers that they know that experience, they know what that's like to have to pull that car over that the guy's acting fidgety and, you're doing a traffic stop on somebody or you're on a domestic disturbance that you're helping out at. And if something hits and something gets bad real quick, it gets bad real quick and you're by yourself and seconds become hours very quickly. So at least in your head. What made you want to get into law enforcement in general to begin with?
I was actually approached. The chief of police with Sturgis Police Department was basically building a football team. And here I was, 6'1", 230, in small town, 1 officer per shift. We had to be able to take care of ourselves. And he said, you fit the mold of what I'm trying to do here. So I need you to come be one of my officers. And it had been something I'd always wanted to do. So I said, you know what? Yeah. I'm not getting any younger. Let me pursue this dream here and see where this goes.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I like that analogy. He's putting together a football team and need to be able to handle ourselves. So what was it like as being a law enforcement officer working the streets compared to what you thought it might be like?
Well, when you come into that, whether it be the city police officer or deputy sheriff role, out there by yourself. And whether it's within the city limits or an entire county, which was with the deputy sheriff, and you have got to carry yourself with confidence. You have got to be stern and strong in your decisions. And once you make a decision, you cannot back out of that decision. So I mean, I never really knew. I always had the confidence, but you've got to be able to extrude that confidence when you're out there and it's you with 1, 2, maybe 6, 7 people. You've got to be able to take control of any situation. And I actually prided myself in being able to do that by being a normal person. I didn't come across with authority or anything. I was one to say, you know what, let's talk about this. Let's get to the bottom of this. I didn't come to you. You called me here. So let's see what we can work out here.
I've always worked. I've always been an individual. I worked with my hands a lot. I've always worked in some type of outdoor capacity. I am a huge extrovert. I love meeting people. And so I was real good friends with my sheriff in our town and the chief deputy, and they had an opening. And he told me, he goes, hey, you know what? You ought to apply. And he goes, I think you'd be good at it. So I was like, you know what? I've never done it before. I was in the military for a little while. And so I was like, hey, I can do this. So I filled out my application. Sheriff approved it, and I went to work. My field training officer was a amazing guy. His name was Kevin Haddix, and just a great teacher. I learned as much as I could from him. And I mean, it was my chief deputy. I'll never forget the one thing I took away from it is always let the individuals, what's the word I'm looking for? Individuals' temperament determine your temperament. So I never went into a situation heated or hot-headed or that, I'm an officer, so I have the power type situation. When the need arose, I could bring it to that level. But for the most part, everybody's a decent human being, that falls on hard times, and some circumstances are worse than others. And a lot of times you don't know the circumstances. So you just want to try to make that person feel as human as possible.
Gab, the ability to be able to just talk to people and treat them with respect, like you said, it goes a long way.
It absolutely does. And they remember that, and their family members remember that. And I mean, it's what the 6 degrees of separation, I believe you call it. It fans out into that community, and you are known for either being able to deal with that situation or not being able to deal with the situation. You're known for how you're going to act when you get there.
Hear that. I think that's something people need to hear from people that have served in law enforcement, is that they don't think that everybody's bad. And we know that not everybody's bad. It just seems like, one of the things that I think when you're talking about, advice that's passed down that I learned very early on is that the interaction, for the most part, that the police officers are having with people, you have to recognize, like you said, that not everybody's bad, but you also have to recognize that you are coming into this person's life at what is quite possibly either the worst or most embarrassing or the most fragile part of their life to that point, a lot of times. So you have to recognize the fact that the way that they're acting may not be their normal behavior. And you need to take that with a grain of salt and realize you have to address the behavior rather than the person, and say that and address and claim that person is that way all the time.
It's really hard to put into words what those experiences are like, because I've seen people at their rock bottom, and, a lot of times, I've had to take guys to jail, and they do their time and they got out, and you know what, I've seen them on the street and they'd stop me and tell me thank you, because regardless of what they did, it's the fact that you got to treat them like a human being. And so much today is portrayed in the news and media that, officers are just out there to exert their power. That's not the case for the most part.
What do you think, if you were to look back on your law enforcement career, what surprised you most about it? What was the thing that you thought might have happened, or it might have been this way, but once you got to working, it was not that at all? What was a big surprise to you?
More often than not, I went into it, you see TV and you see things on TV, so you go into it prepared to always fight, always be, always got to be on the defensive. And, when I started working, it really wasn't that way. Yeah, people would get loud with you, but when you started talking to them calmly, and showing them that you were there to, help them whatever way possible, it really, there wasn't fights. I can think of, in my 2 years, I can think of maybe 6 times that I was actually involved in a physical altercation with an individual. And more often than not, everything was peaceful.
Yeah. And that is true. Depending, granted, everybody's department, everybody's geographical location and demographics and different things come into play with that. So there are some officers that do get into, physical altercations almost every shift in some way, shape, or form. But yeah. I think your experience, my experience is pretty much, they're in that regard is very, very much the same over the, granted 20 years is a little longer period of time. So I had a few more of those, but for the most part, it's a lot less physical altercations than what you think of and see based on TV and movies. Yeah. Yeah. Was there one specific moment, or probably a handful of them, that just sticks out in your career where it's just this, you'll never forget because it was either a huge life lesson of, that you learned something, or it just something that just made you really proud from your law enforcement career?
Well, I'm going to go a different way with that. I'm going
Okay.
to tell you one of the most unbelievable stories from my law enforcement career. I was notoriously the night shift officer. I always worked weekend nights and everything. And I got a call one night that the sheriff wanted me to go ahead and go in. He had another deputy call off for the next day, so he wanted me to come out and handle that shift. So I said, you know what? Your department, you're the man. I work for you. Sure, I'll be out on day shift. Now, when I came out on day shift that day, totally out of my normal routine, should have never been there. It was out of I wasn't supposed to be there. I have a call waiting for me. That call is some young kids who had found some components of a meth lab while they were playing. So I said, okay, no problem. I'll take the call. Give me the address. So I arrive on the address. I get out, and there's a couple of young kids there. Two ladies walk out and start telling me about everything that their kids had found. I will say it was love at first sight, because that lady that walked out is now Mrs. Johnson, who is sitting right in that other room.
Oh my gosh.
I took one look at her and I thought, oh my goodness, I have never in my life seen a more beautiful woman. And I think from that moment forward, I conducted myself professionally. I never said anything out of line. I did my job. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. We actually ended up doing a news interview on News 25 down of Evansville because of the stuff that was found. They were talking about the meth problem within the community and whatnot. So we did an interview for that, and it brought us back around to where we could see each other again. And after that, we never left each other's side, and that's been 15 years ago.
15 years. Wow, man. That's amazing.
And I still use to this day everything that they taught me. Situational awareness is a big one, especially this day and age, with everything that's going on, especially now with the COVID-19. People are a little more agitated easily because they're stuck inside. So I try to use everything I was taught in law enforcement. And I like I said, I was only in law enforcement for a small amount of time, 2 years. I enjoyed every bit of it. But the knowledge that I gained in that 2 years' time, I use to this day as a garbage man, a simple garbage man. It's situational awareness. I can't stress enough. My wife makes fun of me sometimes because when I go to restaurants or we go out to eat, I never sit with my back to a door. I don't like it.
None of us do. Yeah.
I'm always constantly watching for everything. And she always makes fun. She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, my family comes first, and I want to make sure my family's protected. And if I have to put myself in the way of that, even for citizens, to this day and age, we have a very large homeless population here in our city. And there's been altercation with other city workers via the homeless. And I'm one of the first ones that I'll put myself in the way first to protect my coworker or, average citizen. And it's just something that once you go through law enforcement or are an officer, I think it's kind of ingrained in you that, it's that need to protect your family, citizens, or your coworkers.
Yeah, it's funny. My wife used to refer to it as I'm in cop mode. It just walking through the mall or something like that, and it was something as simple as, we're carrying on a conversation and she'd accuse me, I'm not paying attention to her. I'm paying attention to you, but my eyes are everywhere else,
Exactly.
And so, yeah, it's just one of those things you just develop over time. And once it's there forever. It's not something you can turn off. But
no,
I can't even imagine some of the stuff that, and you hear that when I first came on, I went on in 96 and I laughed because, you'd hear those old guys that had been on 20, 25 years at that time. And they're like, I remember a time when, but what's funny about that is all this time that's passed. Now I can't imagine, the things the resources that officers have to their disposal now, just from what they were a few years ago. And I'm sure 8 years ago for you.
Oh man, it's huge.
It's night and day.
It's huge. I think, but the other side of that coin is I commend my local officers all the time, because I honestly don't know if I could do their job today, because you are under a microscope. You could be the nicest person on the planet, nicest cop on the planet, do your job to a T and dot every I, and you are going to be scrutinized. It's the nature of the job today. Is as an officer, you are held under a microscope, and more often than not, they want to try to find something bad. They don't want to like you. And a lot of that, I think, is because of the media. That's my opinion on it. I think the media has a lot to do with that, because there are a lot of good officers out there, a lot of officers that do a lot of huge charity work in their communities, and you don't see enough of that.
Right.
What you see is the negative side of officers, and officers are out to abuse their power, and it's just not the case.
Yeah, I can say without a doubt that was the one thing that I noticed that changed over the course of my 20 years on, was because of the abuse. Well, I won't say abuse, but because of the innovation of all that became social media and everything with the YouTube generation and the, and I say this here, this live stream podcast is on YouTube, but I never would have thought that. But at the same time, everybody has a phone now. That wasn't a thing when I first started. Everybody has, I got to see the innovation of the bag phone. Before I was, when I was in college, I had a bag phone, and then we moved up to the little tiny handheld. And then, so by the time I started, working as a police officer, you started to see the little handheld flip phones. That was the thing. And the Blackberries were a thing. And so you started to see the invention suddenly of the ability for people to take cell phone video right then and there. And people became so focused on, I want to catch somebody at doing something, rather than I want to be the first to break something. I want to show this video. And what people don't recognize, and this is the one thing that I've always preached to anybody who sees a video on YouTube, on Facebook, of some police interaction, is that you're looking at a video that was turned on for a specific reason.
Exactly.
And when that video is turned on, you have no idea what happened in the minutes or seconds leading up to that caused that person to want to hit record. And that's the stuff a lot of times that that's the stuff that people forget about, that's there. And the judgment is there immediately based solely off of that video. And what people don't realize a lot of times is that video can be edited down to whatever they want to fit the narrative that they're trying to show, good, bad, or indifferent. And I've seen it both ways. So it's not to say that, everybody that videotapes law enforcement is a bad thing in that way. I'm just saying you have to take it for what it's worth. So,
Exactly.
But that's something I did notice. And I personally came across a handful of times where normally in my first couple of years on the street, I would come across some situation or be involved in a situation out on the street where a citizen would typically come over and help me. And by the time I ended my career, it was more often than not, that person isn't coming over here to help you. That person's going to stand 20 feet off and videotape you.
Exactly.
And how sad is it that that's become the world that we live in now?
It is. It's very sad. And I think it hurts our officers that are out there every day more, because I know, like in my small town, I say small town, where I was a deputy sheriff, a lot of times that citizen might be my only backup for 20 minutes. And more often than not now, like you said, that they're going to hold back and reach for that phone to, what can I put on YouTube today? Or what can I put on social media today?
Yeah.
Look how this cop was, abusing his power. And it's sad, and it's detrimental to officers as a whole today. And I don't know if I could do the job today confidently with everything that's going on in the world.
Yeah, it's less safe for sure, because officers are second guessing their actions more now than ever. And I guess there's a good to that, but at the same time, the ones that are professional, the ones that are there and doing their job for the right reasons, you don't want them second guessing their
No.
their actions as it happens, because that's where the danger hits. So can you think of one or two things that are the biggest misconceptions about what people may think of with law enforcement, but what is the reality of law enforcement?
Well, one, like I said, we're not out to get everybody. Police officers are not out to get everybody. A lot of times, we're just minding our business. We're on patrol. We get those calls and we have to go intervene in that situation. And I mean, we aren't the bad guys. And one thing that used to really just irk me to no end, it was a huge pet peeve of mine, is when parents would tell their kids, if you don't behave, I'm going to have that police officer arrest you and take you with him.
Oh my gosh.
And I could not, for the life of me, stand that. I used to say, you know what? And I'd correct them on the spot. Man, please, or sir, please don't tell him that, because there may be a time that he's lost and I have to find him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not going to come to me
Exactly.
if he thinks I'm going to take him away. So please don't tell him I'm the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that put in their mind that, oh, wow, yeah, I was going about that all wrong. And you try to start young, because a lot of people, as they get older, have their own misconceptions about what it is. So we always carried things in our cruiser, whether it be the little stick-on badges or pencils or whatnot. Used to go to the schools and talk to them, and just whatever we could do to let them know, hey, I'm on your side.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the bad guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So many times I'd see that when you'd have the parent that wanted us to parent for them and be the excuse so that they weren't the bad guy.
Right.
And it could have just been something simple as you're in the store and the kid, you just happen to be in the store for some other reason, but they see the uniform and it's suddenly, you better behave, or you better be quiet, or, and instantly their eyes light up and it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm bad. I'm going to go to, and it's, to their defense, most parents think it's a benign enough comment. They just don't realize how detrimental that one comment can be to a small child, just simply because it's an easy way out for them to try and get their kid to suddenly listen, as if their failures to try and get their kid to listen all the years prior to that is suddenly going to change things when they say that police officer is going to take you to jail if you don't,
That's right. And unfortunately, you could see the look in their eye that it did have some effect.
Oh, absolutely.
And they're like, oh no, I don't want to go with you. And
yeah.
No, that's not what we're trying to do here, guys. No.
Yeah. My first reaction was I actually would go to the kid first rather than the parent that said it. And I would just come up to them and I'd just shake my head and laugh and say, no, I'm not going to do that, because I found that the first few times that I went to attack the parent, kind of, I say attack, but you went to address the parent first and say, please don't. But then I noticed that the few times that I started it that way, the kid kind of was like, wait a minute, now he's mad at my mom. And so I wanted to try and lighten things up a little bit. So I'd go to the kid first and let him know, no, I'm a funny guy. I'm funny looking or something like that. And no, I'm not going to do that. And then I would just calmly come back to the parent and be like, I don't know if you understand this or not, but here's the possible detriment to saying, oh my gosh, I never realized that. Well,
yeah,
so please pay attention to that. So everybody listening, don't do that to your kids.
No, don't do that.
Absolutely. What's something that you were able to take away from your law enforcement career, that kind of your experience, or something somebody told you, or just something you just generally experienced in your time there that you're able to take with you into the rest of your life?
Well, I think one of the most important things I take from it is that the fact that it takes all kinds of people to make up the world. You're going to deal with people of all different kinds of mindsets. And so one way of approaching somebody and talking to somebody may not work with somebody else. So you have to be able to adjust your approach to people as far as what works for them, as far as contact, and as far as being able to strike up that conversation or being able to get a point across, even if that's what it is. As LT, there's sometimes you'll have to make a point about something. Hey, we need to be doing this a little better, or hey, we need to work on that. And you've got to know how to get that point across in a non-offensive manner to somebody or you might as well be talking to the wall. BP, you know this. I mean, they take offense to it, and the conversation's over. So you've got to find that method, and that's with people in general, in the stores, employers, coworkers, anything. You've got to be able to find that common ground on different people. It's different things.
Some of the best cops I know worked in a factory before they became cops. They never went to college. You don't need to do that. You need to know how to treat people.
Or we're military.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of military. A lot of the guys that I worked with were military, and I actually, when we would do high risk warrants within certain communities, the chief of police who was over that, who would oversee that, I was part of the SRT team, and he would only let military veterans, for one, carry the ARs,
Sure.
and for two, bust in and be the lead into those high risk warrants, because we were, not that I'm not saying somebody with not military experience couldn't do it, but we were more level headed. We'd seen it.
Oh, sure.
We saw it in Iraq.
Yeah.
Did it in Iraq.
Yep.
So it wasn't go in, and you could differentiate even in that moment between a mother holding a child and a perpetrator holding a sawed-off shotgun.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you were able to just think things through.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I know from my experience, I was on the SWAT team for some time, and some of the best instructors that we ever had for a SWAT school or something else was somebody that had been in the military beforehand and had been the point man, and or was part of a team, and they were able to help train you that way. And that's that teamwork thing. It's, you have to, if you don't function as a team, if you just decide to step in and be a part of this line, then you don't know what's going to happen when you go through that door. Not to say that you ever do, but you at least don't know how to react as well to what you're going to see in there. So yeah, I totally agree with that for sure. If there's anything that you can think of that's like a correlation between, what your law enforcement career was like and slipping into the role as into Bearded Villains, can you make any kind of correlation there?
It's the camaraderie. The camaraderie I had with the officers where I worked, I knew a lot of them personally. We had family barbecues together with each other. So like, it's same thing with my military career. It's that feeling of brotherhood, that feeling of, belonging to a group of guys, and guys that no matter what, you could call up at your worst time or when you're feeling your worst and know that they're going to be there. That's what it's been like for me in Bearded Villains. I have everybody, all of our brothers, we have our own issues and demons that we deal with, and being able to reach out, when I'm feeling kind of down and in the dumps, it was nice. It was like that when I worked in law enforcement. If I wasn't having a good day, or, something had really got to me when I was on shift, I could reach out to my FTO, and, he was there, just like a brother. And so Bearded Villains has been that replacement for me. Loved every minute of it. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. Well, man, I thank you for taking a little bit of time out, man. It's National Police Week, and I wanted to honor, the sacrifices of our fallen officers, and there's really no real way to do that this year with COVID-19. They've basically canceled everything that is normal about National Police Week, and I didn't know how else that we could do that here as Bearded Villains and I could do it with the Heart of a Villain podcast, other than just to reach out and maybe get some stories and some experiences from some of our former officers who are now Bearded Villains.
Yes, I mean, it's a moving tribute. I'm glad you did it. If by to all the other officers that were on here, prior or past, my hat's off, the utmost respect to each and every one of you, because I truly understand what it took to put that uniform on every day and go out there into those streets. And, that's to you, BP. You did that for a long time, and my hat's off to you.
I appreciate it, man. Wow. Such good information, I think, there too. Jay indicated that on the chat there. If you've not lived that life, it's definitely a different world for sure. And so I thank those guys. I thank Caveman and Mongo for taking a little bit of time out to talk with me about their experiences within the law enforcement realm. Real quick, I didn't mention when I was talking earlier about the National Police Week and everything that is the Law Enforcement Officers Memorial. I wanted to just quickly touch on this. This year, there will be, and I was talking earlier about how many names were currently on approximately how many names were on the wall in Washington, D.C. for the U.S. There are 307 names that are going to be added this year. 307 names. That includes 135 who passed away, who were killed in the line of duty in 2019, and 172 from previous years. And this happens every year where they add some from prior years, where the circumstance is that an officer's death is deemed to have been a line of duty death, but it wasn't initially, or somebody is injured so badly in the line of duty, and then because of that injury, they end up developing some condition and later pass away from that condition. So, and then there's some that are just lost in history. So that, due to some historical reference and significance, somebody's able to dig it up and find out that they too were killed in line of duty. So there's 307 names going on the wall this year, and unfortunately we will not be able to have the ceremonies in person to recognize those people. Also, because of the unique nature of this year with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's also important to think about this. When police officers put on that gun and the badge and that vest and whatever they do when they go to work, when they signed up for that job, they knew what they were getting into because they knew what the dangers were. But I dare say that any one of the 27 officers who have died recently due to the COVID-19 pandemic ever thought that that's what would get them. We have lost 27 officers in some way, shape, or form due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's tragic to think of, and I know that there's other emergency service personnel that have been lost in a similar nature, but it's National Police Week, so I wanted to bring that up. So God bless the families and co-workers of those people who we have lost this past year. Okay, if you are looking for an all-natural beard oil that will not only tame your beard and your coarse hairs, but make your beard soft and smell amazing, check out Pulpo Beard Oils. Veteran-owned and made for today's beards, Pulpo Beard products combine the best ingredients on the market and with an incredible customer care and customer service to ensure your happiness. Whether you need beard wash, beard oil, beard balm, or some fun clothing, Pulpo is the place to go. Feel fresh, feel savage, feel confident with Pulpo Beard Oils. Go to pulpobeardoils.com and use the code The Heart of a Villain for a discount on your order. Okay, guys, I'm going to bring in our calendar of events music, and we are going to go with, we have a couple of things coming up, and let's see, we get the right music going in here. There we go. There it is. Okay, so we do have two events to talk about here coming up that are still on the calendar, and we're going to wait and see if everything pans out for these two events to take place. So we'll see. But the first one we're going to talk about is Knox Villains. It's June 13th in Knoxville, Tennessee, hosted by the Smoky Mountain Bearded Villains, benefiting the Autism Society of East Tennessee. And it's at the Bohemian at 621 Lamar Street in Knoxville, Tennessee. There is a beard comp and a whole bunch of other stuff going on with it. Knox Villains, June 13th. Hit up the Bearded Villains, the Smoky Mountain Bearded Villains for further information on that and to see all the updates. And then also the Battle of the Beards is taking place October 3rd. Battle of the Beards, October 3rd, down in Southern Indiana, hosted by the Bearded Villains of Southern Indiana. It's benefiting the Gresham House, and it's at the American Legion Post, number 44, at 711 State Street in Newburgh, Indiana. That's the Battle of the Beards 3, hosted by the Bearded Villains of Southern Indiana. And that is it, guys. Guys, I appreciate everybody for being here as long as you have. If you're still here, we had a really long podcast tonight, but it was such a great time because I needed to address the fact that it was National Police Week. So for those of you who are still here listening and are still here, especially live here on Friday Night Live, you guys mean the world to me, so I really appreciate that. We're going to bring in our final music here and tell you that that'll wrap up episode 31 of The Heart of a Villain. Special thanks again to Scrappy, the Wandering Viking from Minnesota, the Bearded Villains of Minnesota. Good luck on your fundraising efforts this weekend. And also to Mongo from the Rainside Villains and Caveman from the Bearded Villains of Southern Indiana. Remember, you can still buy shirts, patches, and pins on the website, theheartofavillain.simplecast.com. And don't forget, the Heart of a Villain never stops beating. Finally, guys, remember, it's okay not to be okay. If you are hurting or you need a brother to talk to, remember, it's okay not to be okay. So for now, everybody, have a great weekend. Enjoy the week ahead. Take care and stay safe. From my chapter to yours, we're all one, no borders. Don't get it twisted like contortionists in close quarters. My crew has more heads than Pete's cleaning up on borders. When Blah, Jelly, and I, we come together, transformers. So when we meet up, handshakes, brews, and salutes. Every brother is different, fingerprints and attributes. One thing in common with the